Video is intended to describe a light staff head named Destiny. To join me on this extensive endeavor of cataloging this crystalline structure shall be my whimsical stick figure chakra map for various chakra simulation Q of this vast apparatus, which is developed to be a staff head, like I implied, utilizing a copper reducing coupling that will mate to a staff that's already in the custody of the recipient to essentially be the main engine of the platform of a very dynamic, high-yield, ambitious lightblade staff named Destiny in total. So, the most relevant aspect to begin the dissertation shall be the lightblade ignition sequences seen like so, vaguely resembling a closed-loop circuit to, of course, serve as a containment field recirculation of the intensive crystalline composition found in one singular apparatus of very ambitious scope and scale, to put it mildly. So I guess the aspect that'd be best to discuss would be the transmutation ratio, seen right here as a lateral band of a certain ignition sequence, which goes partially into the three blade band processors seen on both sides to be the common ground for this very high yield dynamic construct. So the lateral band, of course, serves as the common ground recirculation for the entirety of the three blade band nodes, which go up to the extent of this very dynamic, intensive construct. Starting off with hematite, a very fantastic iron-based mineral that successfully grounds all excessive radial stray energies through the root chakra into the earth stars, into the earth for reprocessing, in tandem with smoky quartz providing the same energetic stimuli to further ground all excess energy, just like hematite, through the earth stars and the root chakra to perpetually contribute to promoting etheric dialysis at a quick ratio to, of course, have the excessive yield of this super construct have a strong ground into the earth to make the magic real, as well as a surge protector built in the structure for the continuum of the energy to have a safe bypass in the earth is quite integral for efficiency's sake, I would say. And that's exactly why that common denominator is so important to highlight as a foundational scaffolding. As I discuss and catalog more of this very ambitious platform, the more relevant that'll become. And that's precisely why these three blade bands have the transmutation ratio up the sides to start the ignition sequence before it goes into the primary blade band scaffolding, with the transmutation ratio at the apex to work as a way to basically ground and diffuse the excess current towards the apex projection of the staff head, so it has a very safe contingent grounding of the intensive stirrup of energy this is inevitably going to generate, to have a ground point before it recirculates into the very powerful celestial space magic set in a continuum of a blade band, basically, which I'll discuss right now. So, the central blade band is actually quite the very ambitious combination of high-frequency crystalline configurations in bead format. Starting off with black tektite, which is a product of nickel iron meteorite oftentimes, impacting the sand, entering from heaven to earth to be a celestial space magic rock, quite simply, luckily in a very black ray foundational setting. So the impact of the meteorite from heaven to earth is represented in a very strong black ray concentration to raise vibrations from the earth star scaffolding upwards, which is a very viable, tangible raising of physical vibrations from a very foundational setting. Hence, it's quite crucial for all light tech, particularly for a very I guess you could say ambitious hallmark magnum opus rendition set in stone ignition sequence scene right here. So that raising of vibration has a very powerful cosmic induction, I guess you could say, to the entire structure from the bottom up, which is going to be quite advantageous in tandem with clear quartz to be a neutral accelerant of this high yield configuration, with the very famous and infamous high potency dharmic accelerant moldavite. So this entire structure has moldavite beads seen all the way up this blade facing, all the way up until it grounds into the transmutation ratio, for a very good reason. I mentioned the transmutation ratio once again. So the aspect of moldavite is a quintessential storm elemental high heart dharmic alignment or dharmic accelerant of very high configuration attunement to one's absolute divine purpose. Hence, it's become quite famous or infamous, depending on who you ask, for being a true stone of magic that is quite simply very taxing on the false self matrix of the illusions that divide one from one's divine self are highly contested, with that alchemical acceleration crucible concentration of energy, which I use and utilize very sparingly in my life's work because of its intense volatility on the false self matrix of the lies and illusions of imprintations that divide one from one's divine template. Hence, they're oftentimes utilized in small doses to get the most out of that dharmic alignment while mitigating timeline whiplash. So the intensive concentration of that much moldavite in one continuous sequence is quite the ambitious feat, as I, of course, privately nerd out to myself as I'm cataloging this construct. Then from the moldavite, going into clear quartz, into Libyan gold tektite, which is I fondly refer to as goldavite, as a gold ray vibrational cousin to the more famous moldavite. Libyan gold tektite was a gold ray crystal utilized by the pharaohs of antiquity to be carved into scarab beetles to have their magi breastplates augmented with celestial god king power, quite simply. And so the aspect of Libyan gold tektite is quite the conundrum in modern science. It's also been called Libyan desert glass because science has yet to completely give a verdict on its origin of existence besides its high vibratory threshold. So the aspect of Libyan gold tektite, it performs a very powerful fire elemental solar plexus and sacrum stimulation with a heavy gold ray storm full auric field stimulation of great amount of joy, enthusiasm, and sovereign manifestation of very high yield capacity. So it's quite the powerful dynamic frequency to go into clear quartz and black tektite once again. These are the three varieties of tektite space magic I get my hands on for the most ambitious high yield celestial accelerant possible in this endeavor. So, of course, when you combine black tektite to raise vibrations for the entire scaffolding from the ground up, raise very, very visceral physical sensation with the intensive alignment of one's dharmic acceleration attunement, as well as Libyan gold tektite, that is the most powerful dharmic acceleration configuration basically possible in a sequence I've seen so far in these ambitious endeavors. So that's why, of course, it literally has the stones to back the archetypal concept of destiny. And so that's the space magic continuum band going all the way up the side right here. And like I mentioned thrice, this transmutation sequence it transitions into is quite essential to take the apex overture momentum of such a high yield concentration towards the focus of the staff head and works to consolidate, ground, and basically bring densified coherence to the intensive space magic, which grounds the apex before it continues back into the ideal exact configuration of the same combination of Libyan gold tektite, moldavite, and black tektite before it goes back into the transmutation ratio right here to work as the auxiliary exhaust scaffolding before it grounds back into the lateral band seen right here as the base grounding scaffolding. To, God willing, mitigate intensive timeline whiplash, this high-yield cosmic construct is developed to emanate at a consistent third-dimensional artifact standard. So, and to support that narrative, both sides of the space magic band are two lightblade bands of exactly identical sequence, except one is with brass to be fortifying the output capacity of the same frequency, while the other is set on silver to be the intake yin receptivity of the exact same vibration as quite the integral contingency to ensure this actually is a viable wieldable construct without just burning off too much cosmic heat to be a viable spirit tool. Starting off with, so of course when I discuss one ratio, this will be discussing the other one identically. So, starting off with red jasper to be the quintessential root chakra stabilizer in the mineral kingdom of the earth frequency domain via resonance. So that's quite integral to ensure a heavy concentration of stabilized root stimulation to encourage the magic being real, and once again being a viable vibrational application of that much dharmic acceleration. To embody that is quite simply the goal, to make it real for viable practical application in all things miraculous, quite simply. So that plays quite the integral role for the in-the-body experience contingency to stabilize the root base scaffolding and attune the frequency to earth realm resonance to, once again, make the magic real. And to put it simply, then going into clear quartz to neutrally amplify the energy into cinnabar. So cinnabar actually is a mercury-based crystal, which is very much the quintessential sorcery frequency archetype resonance, which is very powerful for burning through limitations of the root chakra, the sacrum, and the entire capacity of limiting false self-beliefs that would inhibit one's dharmic capacity as the I Am manifest in all varieties, particularly comes to atomical alteration or quantum entanglement coupling of different realities, aka magic. So this stone is quite powerful for literally shifting the etheric weave of creation. I won't go too far into it because it's already a very long video and very far out as it is, but I'll describe more in depth with the recipient. But I guess it's akin to discussing the vast mysteries of the ocean is one of those stones like cinnabar of its vast scale and its implication on reality. Hence, of course, as a true stone of destiny, it works very powerfully to burn off limitations that would be considered the alchemical crucible accelerated through the system that would once again divide one's innate soul capacities and dissolve the barriers between them. So hence, once again, that's another aspect of destiny, of the alchemical crucible accelerated by vibrational engineering. That's exactly why it goes into clear quartz, and to once again to stabilize the overture is so critical with this construct. To be the red jasper, to stabilize that much transmutation of cosmic energy through the system being in a wieldable staff. So that's why it continues all the way so on both sides identically as absolutely possible with my hands, going into the transmutation ratio once again to be the apex grounding of the output to promote the intensive high yield capacity of all three of these blade band processors produce a very high yield emanation. Hence the apex to ground it is a very important aspect to ground the excess energy through the root chakra into the earth to encourage the magic being real once again. So that would be the blade band scaffolding mentioned thus far, and there are two prominent lateral bands to be discussed as well at this time period. I'll start off with the abundance ratio. So in this timeline, there are 52 operational constructs in distribution globally that have been specifically developed to be the abundance ratio seen right here, with a very specified wand or talisman or mainframe sometimes designation. Hence, the abundance ratio has many cousins. This would be another one of them at this point. But there are 52 proper entries of a very vast morphic field, generating significant vibrational compound interest, which is going very well, to put it lightly. And that same ratio that has been well utilized and prolifically reproduced since the staff of this variety came out early 2025 would be that of emerald, to be the quintessential heart chakra stimulant in the mineral kingdom of the beryl family, 8.5 out of 10 the hardness scale for that impeccable green ray activation, hence is a true precious stone of acclaim most mortals have heard of. Going into rutilated quartz to work as a massive accelerant of the green ray expansion energy. Going into moss green agate to be the most stabilized heart chakra stimulant mineral kingdom of water elemental green ray capacity to stabilize the heart's abundance receptivity capacity. Then going into golden healer quartz to be the quintessential gold by light high heart source attunement of celestial gold ray energy, which translates very nicely into the green ray capacitor to make essentially a new earth portal of the celestial becoming terrestrial by design, particularly with the moss green agate. Then, going into peridot, a fantastic third and fourth chakra stimulant, that of earth frequency, which I consider to be the frequency of growth, chlorophyll, caught in crystalline form, hence all of this is possible, to be the ultimate expansion of abundance and positive vibrations. So those three together make the most dynamic activation of the abundance spectrum with source imbuement, which of course could be another homage or nod to the Holy Grail concept set in vibrational engineering. So that makes for quite the crucial combination of frequency to encourage the heart's ultimate capacity of reception based on love of creation, the Holy Grail. Quite simply, is the intended design, and so far it's performed very well in distribution. Then down here, the last blade band sequence to be mentioned in this chronicle of this video shall be the tried and true love-shine ratio, which is a trifecta of 3 different pink gray stones in one sequence to be the ultimate high heart divine love resonator, which is another one of those universal solvents, quite simply set in stone. And so the aspect of the rose quartz is a very classic and famous and common, thank goodness, pink gray high heart activator alignment of divine love. Then the clear quartz works as a neutral amplification into kunzite, seen right here. Kunzite actually is a fantastic lithium-based, very soothing nervous system, high heart activator in tandem with that divine love resonance. Then over here is morganite, which actually is a beryl family pink-gray crystal, which means it's a cousin to emerald. And I'm sure if it was discovered in times of antiquity, it would be another very famous crystal that has been well praised and utilized for millennia of magical utilization. And the aspect of morganite, with its very dense pink-gray atomical structure, is like a very strong, similar vibration to rose quartz, to be a very strengthened pink-gray attunement frequency based on its dense atomical density structure. So those 3 are the love-shine ratio of intensive, immersive triangulation of divine love resonance, which of course, like I said earlier, is ideally a universal solvent, is divine love resonance in every situation. And so that would be all the blade bands mentioned thus far. Now I'll be tackling the auxiliary crystal scene right here, turning to the structure, as well as the main capacitor engine of the construct, as well as all these other guys starting from here. So, down here, oh, and also one more thing too, is that the entire blade facing right here, seen on both sides, is as symmetrically built out on both sides as absolutely possible to have very even vibratory emanation on both sides of the blade facing, so it's very symmetrical in its output emanation. Just a quick little highlight that I mentioned. So, of course, me discussing one side will be discussing the other side impeccably, hence they're identically installed as much as absolutely possible. So right here, we have the very famous and lovely black-gray crystal of wonder and quite in vogue in this timeline of shungite. So shungite is a very famous in this timeline black-gray carbon-based crystal, very famous for mitigating the effects of harmful wavelengths we contend with as modern species, such as 5G, radioactive waves, all kinds of things have been claimed to be neutralized very effectively by the shungite, which is a carbon-based crystal, which is very fortuitous for a black-gray transmutation agent to resonate with the carbon-based platform of our physical avatars, at least for now, in this timeline, to be a quintessential charcoal filter to neutralize negativity in all its varieties and transmute it, just like the transmutation ratio. Except this, of course, is a very, very famous rendition of mitigating like the cell phone towers and all the things I mentioned previously. But that's why there's a heavy dose there, too, to be extremely highly purifying through the entire structure. With this much cosmic fire, a transmutation agent is quite integral for somewhat of a viable efficiency platform. Then above that would be scoicite, the quintessential white ray stone of divinity I employ quite frequently in these endeavors, to be a tremendous 6, 7, 8 non-physical chakra student back to one's godhead. It also brings extreme divine alignment soothing capacity to the conscious self and the higher self, which of course is generating to the witness self of one's highest self template, viewing the aspects of life, which is, I would say, very supportive in the endeavors of spiritual alignment. Then above that, on both sides, of course, is quite the integral crystal named smoky celestial quartz. So smoky quartz structure, of course, like mentioned previously, is very effective for grounding excess energy in the earth for reprocessing. But the aspect of the celestial growth structure plays quite the critical role to serve as an auto-regulation frequency with the auric field template, particularly when wielded in the staff format, of course, as well as any other energetic quantum entanglement with the recipient's staff wielding the broadcast to basically govern the frequency pitch based on one's highest template in real time to ensure it's very much regulated, as well as it works as an adaptogen for the entire construct to mitigate the pitch frequency for full compatibility with the wielder moment to moment. It gets very unavoidably very extra far. I want to do my best to coherently linear discuss this to make it sound somewhat rational. And because it's quite the vast, mysterious power crystal that's quite integral for all these constructs for maximum efficiency of working as a diffuser to auto-regulate the frequency pitch to ensure equilibrium as much as divinely possible based on divine intervention, quite literally. So, of course, they're on both sides. Then moving into petrified wood, which of course is a very famous variety of wood that's been petrified from another time of millions of years ago. So the aspect of primordial earth frequency turning this wood into stone through mineral saturation is very, very advantageous, just like red jasper, to make a very quintessential stabilized earth frequency resonance to bring the heaven to earth, quite simply, as another little dose to balance out and ground the excess high yield overture. Then above that is another very famous favorite of millions for thousands of years, turquoise, on both sides, of course. Turquoise is a quintessential fifth chakra stimulant combining the aspects of earth, fire, water, and wind of what we consider the four terrestrial elements or the four directions of the Lakota medicine wheel. So the aspect of turquoise is definitely a very beautiful, amazing crystal that's gone very well in the annals of magical utilization history as a quintessential stone of wholeness, which confers to full wholeness pranic generation, which is very encouraging to one's highest truth. So that's a very, very effective frequency right there. And then right here is a Holy Trinity Master Healer frequency subroutine I utilize quite frequently as well for utilitarian healing purposes. So the aspect of the Tibetan black quartz, the Seraphinite, and the Star Argonite all have very similar vibratory threshold capacity interaction with the human auric field, to which I call the Master Healer Trinity. And so the aspect of the Tibetan black quartz from Tibet has a very powerful full light body activation from top to bottom that dismantles patterns of dis-ease through high yield toroidal stimulation of the higher stellar gateways as well as the earth stars, simultaneously fortifying the entire chakra calm. And just like I'll be mentioning thrice in a row, the Seraphinite being a very effective full light body healer as well to once again very successfully with seraphic nature dismantle the patterns of dis-ease found stored in the system from top to bottom. That in tandem with the third member of the Trinity, Star Argonite, is a calcium-based full light body healer stimulant as well that, just like mentioned thrice now, works very diligently to dismantle patterns of dis-ease found from bottom to top, the auric field. Hence the Holy Trinity have always been utilized together in a sequence for that exact purpose for very utilitarian healing effects. Then over here is Himalayan Golden Azeztulite, which is another very fantastic high heart gold white light source attunement frequency, much like the Golden Healer Quartz, which I'll mention more once I get to it. But obviously the aspect of impeccable divine unified source alignment is what puts the source in sorcery, which is very, very always advantageous. So having that clean shot of gold white light source attunement and a heavy concentration goes a very long way for source resonance. Then above that would be lapis lazuli, which is another, just like turquoise, favorite of millions for thousands of years, due to the aspect of its beautiful color, of course, and also its very well utilized magical acclaim of antiquity from many traditions. And it has a very powerful 5th and 6th chakra stimulation of wind elemental frequency to encourage one's highest sovereign perception. Most importantly about that is also one's embodiment of one's sovereign capacity of who they are in truth, in tandem with their divine template of their spiritual gifts, cities, psychic abilities, all that stuff is addressed very well with lapis lazuli as a classic stone, well utilized for many millennia. Then next to that would be Perseli Bluestone, which is the same kind of stone that Stonehenge was hewn from. So the aspect of Stonehenge, which the site in Glastonbury is about 400 miles away from the place where this was quarried, this particular stone utilized for Stonehenge. So obviously, what makes that relevant is that the vibrational engineers of antiquity must have certainly thought the juice was worth the squeeze based on its piezoelectric interdimensional properties of grounding high capacity transmissions into the earth realm was worth the effort of hewing the stones to several ton configurations and moving them 400 miles away to be the stone utilized for that site. So That's why that's a fun fact, and of course has a nice homage of the same resonance of Stonehenge, one of the great wonders of the world, of mysterious magic, if you would. So that gives a very nice little, another dose of that right there, just for a very cool story, if anything. Then above that would be another dose of rose quartz, like mentioned down here, to be the quintessential further pink ray divine love attunement frequency resonance, which goes a long way. Then at the very leading edge of this blade face configuration would be flint. May look like a very humble, unassuming crystal, but actually is very, very potent for high yield dynamic grounding, which is of course a big prerogative with this much space magic, is to make it real and wieldable. And so the aspect of the flint has a very, very dramatic, powerful Earth star stimulation into the Earth, so powerfully in fact that it grounds higher etheric energy very effectively into the physical realm, particularly through the recipient of heaven to Earth, to once again make the magic real and efficient with the properly functioning astral body aligned to the physical avatar. So that is a very humble appearing stone, but actually quite integral for the maximum efficiency of this very ambitious super construct. Okay, so we're making good progress here. Okay, so the main engine heart of this entire construct would be this lovely citrine. Actually, that was a personally utilized crystal of the recipient who commissioned this construct into existence, which has its own great amount of legend and lore, which I will omit. But the aspect of this main capacity of citrine makes for a very powerful dynamic gold ray activation to the solar plexus to be another very sunny, funny, good vibration emanation, which is very, very advantageous for solar plexus stimulation for manifestation. And to the top and bottom of that would be 2 pieces of Sedona fulgurite. So the aspect of Sedona is quite the famous magical vortice location on the Earth at this point, based on its very high red iron concentration surroundings. So the aspect of red oxidizing is from iron, which this entire area has a very strong grounding capacity to further encourage magic being real. Hence I'm here for efficiency's sake. And the aspect of lightning striking this red rock makes for a very unique dynamic activation crystal, which is literally the power of lightning striking sand, vaporizing the sand right here to turn it into a crystal called fulgurite. So the aspect of lightning resonance right here was well enjoyed by shamans of antiquity by resonating with the power of lightning to intensify their amplifications of prayers, intentions in their medicine and their magical services as a very powerful shamanic spirit tool of antiquity. So the aspect of that, also resonating with the power of lightning, literally has a very lightning powerful activation for the full entire light body, as well as manifestation acceleration capacity that was utilized to recommune with the divine, or spirit if you would, from the shamans, to translate into amplification of prayer. So the aspect of the high iron concentration further grounds that intensive high radial, literally lightning caught in a bottle, not joking, of crystalline format, to intensify those amplifications into tangibility, which is very, very fortuitous for the great crusade of making the magic real. And that'd be them. And let's see here. I'm actually making very good progress. So next I'll be discussing the wooden core, the selenites, the kyanites, as well as the focalizer seen right here, and this video will be notarized. And before I do any of that then, so the copper coupling also has this white leather staged here for illustrative purposes to, once this is fully notarized, this will be, at least aesthetically pleasing wise, adhered to the copper coupling, so it has more of a finished construct, and also it's a white ray full 7 spectrum stimulation, which will be very advantageous for unified field emanation inherent of destiny. And that's why that will be there once this video is fully notarized in a properly installed fashion. It also works as a nice little somewhat of an insulation for the copper conductor to mitigate the lateral leakage of energy from the staff to the core of this entire device, which I will mention right now after I have a sip of coffee and bring this whole thing together. So the aspect of the wooden core of this device would be oak from Oak Creek in a very special location I've been working with quite diligently since I've arrived here. And so the aspect of this particular oak actually comes from a recipient tree who has its tendrils grounded into the water of Oak Creek, which is a 24/7 waterway here in Sedona. So it comes from a donor tree that's always very healthy, very abundant, and always in flow. So that's very nice. And the aspect of the dense carbon structure of oak makes it a very strong wood, so that, of course, when the carbon-based wood of strength, of dense atomical structure, resonates with the human avatar, it also makes for a very powerful stabilization carbon resonance to stabilize the energy into the physical avatar, which is actually quite integral for the crystal energy or the silica radius built around it to make a viable further physical transference to the physical avatar to once again make the magic real is the big prerogative there. So that's where the wood comes in quite integral for carbon silica transition into wieldability for making the magic real. And so the aspect of the oak right there, like I mentioned, makes for a very strong wood-based platform. Then affixed to the oak on both sides would be that of selenite. So selenite by itself is a very fantastic 6, 7, 8 non-physical chakra stimulant back to one's Godhead, which is a very, very effective way to clear debris between one's conscious self and one's higher guidance, which is by itself very advantageous for the spiritual adept. And with that high frequency induction of purification, it also works as a very powerful transmutation further through divine alignment through any stagnant densities through the entire auric field from top to bottom. Very, very effective good stuff by itself. But where it always truly shines is always this critical feature I always say for last in these dissertations. So the aspect of selenite, in a sequence, obviously in a closed loop reactive circuit and terminated altogether, works with the entire crystal group to purify all of these crystals in a closed loop sequence, which is very advantageous. It also works to amplify or intensify the entire crystalline pitch, as well as, I would say most importantly, bring equilibrium and harmonization to the entire crystalline output algorithm. So that aspect always is very triumphant to discuss as a trifecta of effectivity for this entire dissertation of 32.5 minutes of me ranting about this construct thus far. As an absolute boon to efficient spiritual technology, quite simply. And affixed underneath these 3 blade bands against the selenite would be the 4 spectrums of kyanite I utilize quite frequently. And so for this section, I'll be utilizing whimsically fast penmanship, doing my best to illustrate the rapid transference of these kyanite crystals seen against the selenite underneath the blade band. Starting off with black kyanite, which has a very heavy concentration of black kyanite for a very distinct purpose throughout this entire selenite matrix. So black kyanite is a very effective rapid grounder of energy as quick as possible through the root chakra into the earth stars at the speed of quantum light, which is, of course, is another one of those integral make the magic real vibration crystals, as well as a surge protector to ensure the excess frequency pitch is always meeting the earth as quick as possible to ensure comfortable, safe continuity so it's grounded. That's a big prerogative as well. And so this entire construct actually has the black kyanite interlaced between each of the other spectrums of kyanite all the way up like so for that distinct purpose to serve as the ultimate surge protector's contingency to ensure the frequency pitch is making its mark into the earth realm for maximum magical efficiency. Then above the black kyanite right here will be orange kyanite. Orange kyanite is a very powerful sacrum stimulant to a very high degree of rapid transferability, of bridging past limitations that block one's creativity in their divine alignment. So basically it's a very empowering stone that really bridges very quickly against imprintation limitations that would be really dividing one's divine nature from their authentic I am creativity capacity. Then going into black kyanite once again, then going into green kyanite, the most rapid transfer of heart chakra bypass possible in very, very powerful succession of transmission reception at a very, very quick ratio. Then black kyanite, then into blue kyanite. Blue kyanite is a very effective third eye stimulant, or basically a left and right hemispherical alignment frequency that mitigates cross interference. That would be, of course, interfering with the awakened third eye, aka whole brain thinking, at a very high capacity. Then going to black kyanite up once again, twice after that, to once again serve as the ultimate grounding of energy. So the aspect that's quite important too with the kyanites being utilized here is they also serve like another layer of etheric Teflon. To be such a rapid rerouting energy at the speed of quantum light, it's very, very discouraging for negative, stagnant, weaker energies not of divine alignment to maintain the field with this resonance. Which of course means they bypass rerouting of energy so rapid, so quick, it's very, very difficult for intrusive negative frequencies to maintain in that resonance throughout much rerouting, rebuffering, reprocessing at the speed of quantum light, based on transference of the entire configuration as well. As well, it's another aspect too of ensuring the transferability of the staff being wielded, for example, to have the prayers intensified transmission-wise to, that's enough far out Christianese in that aspect. I'm going to stick back to cataloging the construct, but but that's the idea of the integrity of the integral nature of kyanite here. And so also, with all these crystals seen so far, blade band sequences as well as installations, they've all been terminated to a primary wire, a main vein if you would, of copper, brass, and silver seen through the entire structure to generate substantial vibrational compound interest as a common ground for all these crystals in a termination sequence as well. Then, of course, with the focalizers not being technically inside the containment field, are developed to, just like implied, focus and focalize the excess energy to sharpen the pitch, which of course has been grounded to the primary wire, so it capitalizes on the momentum of the closed loop sequence seen right here to give a sharp apex focus through multiple tiers of 4 crystals on each side of the blade banding. Starting off with I take a deep breath after that one. Titanium aura quartz. So titanium aura quartz is a very fantastic modern alchemical man-made structure of pressure coating titanium to quartz structure. So titanium structure is very strengthening to the entire rainbow light body, as well as also very discouraging for, once again, weaker frequencies to violate the integrity of the auric field's ideal configuration. So it's a very strengthening, very empowering frequency that also is quite integral for sharpening the strength of the focus of what other crystals are utilized for the focus of the energy of the construct. Generally, usually a wand, but this is a staff variety, of course. And so right here would also be 2 lovely large specimens of clear quartz to serve as the absolute neutral amplification of both the hardware of this entire construct as well as the impulses of the wielder to put the prayers and the magic to essentially make it consciousness assisted technology for amplification output projection, quite simply. So that's why those large quartz pieces are there and quite integral for their purpose. Then going into another dose of titanium aura quartz to further fortify the output, going into 2 specimens of gold and healer quartz seen here on both sides to be that quintessential gold white light divine attunement to source transmission transference, which is very, very advantageous. So that's of course the entirety of the concept right there. And by golly, under 40 minutes this whole thing has been documented. So to summarize, this is a very ambitious high yield construct that does not roll out into distribution to my hands very often based on its extremely high potent cosmic space magic orientation. And that would basically be it. And it's developed to be quite the dharmic acceleration super construct standing wave set in stone in a 3-dimensional artifact to once again back the archetypal designation of something that'd be worthy of being called destiny. Well, that would be it. 1,000 blessings, and may the force be with us all.